Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Okay, Maharaj, we should go.
Hare Krishna, my dear devotees, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Can you guys hear everybody online?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes.
So today we're hearing, if I'm not mistaken, chapter 9, text number 3. Is that right?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. Ashradadana Purusha, Dharmasyasya Parantapa, Aprapyamam Nivartante, Mrityu Samsara Vartamani. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore, they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The faithless cannot accomplish this process of devotional service. That is the purport of this verse. Faith is created by association with devotees. Unfortunate people, even after hearing all the evidence of Vedic literature from great personalities, still have no faith in God. They are hesitant and cannot stay fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Thus, faith is a most important factor for progress in Krishna consciousness. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that faith is the complete conviction that simply by serving the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. That is called real faith. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 4.31.14, Yata taror mula nisay chanena tripyanti tatskanda bujo pasaka pranapaharacha yatendriyanam tataiva sarvam sarva haranam Achut-tuteja. By giving water to the root of a tree, one satisfies its branches, twigs, and leaves. And by supplying food to the stomach, one satisfies all the senses of the body. Similarly, by engaging in the transcendental service of the Supreme Lord, one automatically satisfies all the demigods and all other living entities. Therefore, after reading Bhagavad Gita, one should promptly come to the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. One should give up all other engagements and adopt the service of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. If one is convinced of this philosophy of life, that is faith. Now, the development of that faith is the process of Krishna consciousness. There are 3 divisions of Krishna conscious men. In the 3rd class are those who have no faith, even if they are officially engaged in devotional service. They cannot achieve the highest perfectional stage. Most probably, they will slip after some time. They may become engaged, but because they haven't complete conviction and faith, it is very difficult for them to continue in Krishna consciousness. We have practical experience in discharging our mission activity that some people come and apply themselves to Krishna consciousness with some hidden motive. And as soon as they are economically a little well situated, they give up this process and take to their old ways again. It is only by faith that one can advance in Krishna consciousness. As far as the development of faith is concerned, one who is well versed in the literatures of devotional service and has attained the stage, the stage of firm faith is called a first-class person in Krishna consciousness. And in the second class are those who are not very advanced in understanding the devotional scriptures, but who automatically have firm faith that Krishna Bhakti, or service to Krishna, is the best course, and so in good faith have taken it up. Thus, they are superior to the third class, who have neither perfect knowledge of the scriptures nor good faith, but by association and simplicity are trying to follow. The third class person in Krishna consciousness may fall down, but when one is in the second class, he does not fall down. And for the first class person in Krishna consciousness, there's no chance of falling down. One in the first class will surely make progress and achieve the result at the end. As far as the third class person in Krishna consciousness is concerned, although he has faith in the conviction that devotional service to Krishna is very good, he has not yet gained adequate knowledge of Krishna through the scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes these third class persons in Krishna consciousness have some tendency toward karma yoga and jnana yoga, and sometimes they are disturbed by, but as soon as the infection of karma yoga or jnana yoga is vanquished, they become second class or first class persons in Krishna consciousness. Faith in Krishna is also divided into three stages and described in Srimad Bhagavatam. First class attachment, second class attachment, and third class attachment are also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto. Those who have no faith, even after hearing about Krishna and the excellence of devotional service, who think that it is simply eulogy, find the path very difficult, even if they are supposedly engaged in devotional service. For them, there is very little hope of gaining perfection. Thus, faith is very important in the discharge of devotional service. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yes, developing faith is very important here. You want to get. I've written a book. It's called Developing Faith, a systematic study. And in this book, let's see what I say. Every endeavor begins with faith. A trip, a new business venture, marriage, university education, purchase of a car or house, belief in God, etc. Faith that one has a chance of success always precedes the endeavor, and later one gets the knowledge that the endeavor was either a success or failure. One may assume that knowledge must precede faith, but the fact is that first one has faith and then knowledge follows as one has practical experience of the endeavor. Faith is defined as strong or unshakable belief and trust in something sublime. An example of faith preceding knowledge is the act of purchasing an airline ticket. At the time of purchase, one does not know that the plane will land safely at the destination. The purchase of the ticket is an act of faith that implies one trusts the airline and the crew to navigate the aircraft safely. Only when the aircraft lands at the destination does one know that the plane landed safely, which validates his initial faith. The attempt to know before developing faith is no guarantee of success. A friend of mine studied a certain company and its stock performance for 1 year. At the end of his exhaustive study, he was convinced that the company's stock was undervalued. He was also convinced that the company had excellent scope for growth and an increase in market share soon. With these convictions based on his studies and knowledge of the company's past performance, its management, its competitors, and other relevant facts, he decided to purchase $2 million of stock in that company with the expectation that he would make a considerable profit in the next 6 to 12 months. But he was shocked to see that the company's stock tanked within 2 weeks after he purchased it. Factors unbeknown to him and beyond his control caused the stock to lose considerable value in a short period. In the example cited above, faith was placed in an airline ticket and the expectation that a company's stock would increase. The outcomes of both were dependent on circumstances that were beyond the control of the individuals. My friend who spent a year studying his particular stock was convinced that there was very little risk in buying the stock. He was confident and had faith he would succeed. But in the material world, trust no future, however bright, for all human beings hang on a slender thread, and the strongest fall with a sudden crash. In the material world, there will always be changes that are not predictable and controlled. Thus, there is an element of uncertainty that causes anxiety for the outcome. Faith in God attained by honest observation of nature and oneself. Lord Krishna indicates that he pervades and supports the entire universe. With this in mind, it is possible by careful observation of nature and oneself to perceive the presence of God by the different manifestations of his omnipotent mystical powers and by our personal psychological development in spiritual life. The following Vedic history of the saint Narada Muni illustrates this important point. So I'm reading from a book I've written called The Developing Faith, a Systematic Study. Okay, in a second. One day, Narada Muni was on his way to visit the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana, a plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. He met a Brahmana priest who asked him to ask the Lord when he would attain salvation from birth and death. Narada agreed and continued. He encountered a humble shoemaker who was sitting under a banyan tree repairing shoes. The shoemaker also requested Narada to ask the Lord when he would attain liberation from birth and death and return to the spiritual world to be with the Lord. Narada reached the spiritual world, Vaikuntha. He asked the Lord about the Brahmana and the shoemaker. The Lord replied that the Brahmana would remain in the cycle of repeated birth and death for a very long time. The shoemaker, however, would return to the Lord at the end of his present life. Narada Muni was perplexed by the Lord's answer. The Brahmana was a learned Vedic scholar who performed Vedic ritualistic sacrifices. He had a large following of disciples and admirers. The shoemaker was a humble worker with very little formal education. He spent his entire day repairing shoes made of animal hides. His trade was considered very lowly. It did not seem plausible that the Brahmana priest would remain in the cycle of birth and death indefinitely, and the lowly shoemaker would be liberated in this life. Narada asked the Lord how the shoemaker could be liberated and the Brahmana remain in the material world. Narayana replied, "You will understand. If they ask you what I was doing when you saw me, tell them I was passing an elephant through the eye of a small sewing needle." On his return to the earth, Narada met the Brahmana first. He inquired from Narada if this was indeed his last birth in the material world. Narada replied that the Brahmana would stay in the material world and undergo many births and deaths. The Brahmana was visibly upset. "Did you see the Lord? What was he doing?" asked the Brahmana. And Narada answered that the Lord was passing an elephant through the eye of a needle. The Brahmana snapped back, "I don't believe your fairy tales." Narada understood that the Brahmana was not a man of faith. He was an academic, but not a genuine devotee of the Lord. Narada approached the shoemaker, who was patiently repairing shoes. On seeing the saint, the shoemaker stood up with respect and then bowed down and touched his head to the feet of Narada. He then offered a seat to the saint, gave him water, and asked, "Have you seen my Lord Narayana? Please describe what he was doing." Narada replied, "He was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle." The shoemaker began to shed tears and said, "My Lord is all powerful. He can do anything at his sweet will." Narada was astonished. He asked, "Do you really believe the Lord can pass an elephant through the eye of a needle?" "I am absolutely sure," said the shoemaker. "The Lord is all powerful. He can perform miracles." Narada was curious to know why the shoemaker was so sure of the Lord's prowess. He asked the humble man how he could be so sure. "My dear Narada, every day I work under the shade of this banyan tree," said the shoemaker. "In season, so many seeds spread over the ground. Look, here is one. The seed is small, yet my Lord put so much power in this little seed that a gigantic tree will grow from it. If the Lord can put a huge tree in this little seed, then it is not difficult to believe he can pass an elephant through the eye of a needle." Narada was impressed by the logic and reason of the observant shoemaker, whose trust in the infinite power of the Lord was not based on blind faith. It was the result of careful observation of nature, which abounds in testaments of the Lord's power and glory. Modes of nature influence development of a particular faith. Under the influence of the modes of nature, one evolves three kinds of faith: in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance. As long as one, sorry, one second. As long as one associates with the modes of nature, his mentality is shrouded by the contamination of misconception, false attachment, and lust for sense gratification. The different degrees of contamination are ignorance, passion, and goodness. Those influenced by ignorance put their faith in ghosts and spirits. Those influenced by passion, one has faith in demons or any powerful man. By goodness, one worships demigods with faith. Only those persons who have risen to a position transcendental to the three modes of nature place their faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 4.3.23 that a person situated in transcendental goodness worships Lord Krishna, the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. Rising above the influence of the modes of nature is possible only by the practice of pure devotion to Lord Krishna, who is never affected by the modes. The Lord says, know that all states of being they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. Bhagavad Gita 7.12. The Lord is the origin and controller of the modes of nature. He is above the modes and their influence. All living entities in the material world remain influenced by the modes as long as they are rebellious against the Lord. The mode of goodness conditions one to happiness. Passion conditions him to the fruits of action, and ignorance to madness. Bhagavad Gita 14.9. But as soon as they surrender to the will of the Lord, by regulated devotional service, they become free. Lord Krishna affirms this. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Bhagavad Gita 7.14. It is by uninterrupted service to Lord Krishna that one is released from entanglement by the modes of nature. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Bhagavad Gita 14.26. The level of Brahman means one is freed from the influence of the three modes so that he can engage in the service of God without any impediment. Faith in material things causes anxiety. Ultimately, everyone is destined to fail in this temporary material world due to the inevitable cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death. People feel anxiety because they instinctively desire to be immortal, but all men are trapped in a temporary and constantly changing material body. The inevitable course of human life from birth to death causes continual anxiety. Modern scientists declare that they will one day conquer old age, disease, and death. But until now, these claims have not materialized. The mind that is always fearful, anxious, and uncertain about the future will remain unsteady and incapable of focusing on higher order thoughts of self-realization and God consciousness. Disturbance of the mind is due to want of an ultimate goal. Material goals may be achieved with great effort and skill, but the person of merit and his accomplishments will eventually disappear and be forgotten. The ultimate goal of life is achieved by understanding one's relationship with Krishna and working as a sincere servant of the Lord. Ignoring self-realization makes one fearful and anxious. Immortality is the natural quality of the soul, which is perceived by the presence of consciousness through the material body. It is a false attachment to the body that keeps the soul chained to the unnecessary cycle of birth and death. Due to the attachment to the body, a person becomes attached to the pursuit of sense gratification and abandons any attempt for self-realization. Krishna instructs his friend and disciple Arjuna about the difference between the soul and the body. He says, those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, meaning the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal, meaning the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. Bhagavad Gita 2.16. That which pervades the entire body, meaning consciousness, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. Bhagavad Gita 2.17. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada explains, there is no endurance of the changing body, that the body is changing every moment by the actions and reactions of the different cells is admitted by modern medical science, and thus growth and old age are taking place in the body. But the spirit soul exists permanently, remaining the same despite all changes of the body and the mind. That is the difference between matter and spirit. By nature, the body is ever changing and the soul is eternal. Bhagavad Gita, purport to 2.16. By transferring attachment from the temporary body to the eternal soul and its eternal relationship to God, Krishna, the disturbed mind can achieve a peaceful state. One who lives without a relationship with Krishna is always distressed and without peace. This is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Fear arises when when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of absorption in the external illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he also forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. This bewildering, fearful condition is affected by the potency of illusion called Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master whom he should accept as his worshipable deity and his very life and soul. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.37. The spiritual master is not God. He is the messenger or representative of God who teaches the disciples how to serve the Lord without any selfish motive or desire. Ignoring such instructions and acting whimsically will lead to entanglement by the three modes of nature and repetition of birth and death. Anxiety and fear will exist as long as people are under the influence of the three modes of nature. As a result, one becomes preoccupied with the duality of gain and safety, happiness and distress, etc. The many dualities one encounters in life become sources of bondage and bewilderment. Dualities plague a person who does not have the unique fixed goal of serving God purely to please him and is devoid of any material motives and speculative theories. Karma, time, The three modes of nature cause entanglement in the cycle of birth and death. Those who desire profit for sense gratification become entangled in the unending cycle of action and reaction, which results in continual disturbances. These troubles are caused by the passage of time, the influence of the modes of nature, and karmic reactions, or the law of action and reaction from past activities. The modes of nature influence persons with desires prompted by lust, anger, greed, and a hankering for prestige and fame. These cause people with selfish motives to compete with other persons with similar desires. In such a highly competitive context, conflicting dualities of how to act arise, accompanied by anxieties for gain and safety. These are compounded by the passage of time that obliges persons with selfish motives to act. By learning to tolerate the dualities of life, one can become free from anxieties regarding gain and safety. This material position is achieved as one fully matures in the practice of Krishna consciousness and becomes dependent on the goodwill of Krishna. This is confirmed by Krishna. Quote, the steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. Bhagavad Gita 5:12. Transcendental action without any karmic reaction. Many miraculous things happen when a person decides to seriously surrender to Lord Krishna. By devoting oneself to serving Krishna and strictly following the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master who is a pure devotee, one is freed from the reactions of past karma. Krishna states, persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. Bhagavad Gita 7.28. How are the sinful reactions of past activities completely eradicated? This is revealed by Brahma in his prayer called the Brahma Samhita. He says, I adore Lord Govinda, who burns up to their roots all fruitive activities of those who are imbued with devotion. And the Brahma Samhita 5.54. Lord Krishna gives special dispensation, meaning release from previous karma, to his sincere devotees, so that they are free to engage in the service of the Lord without the burden of previous karmic reactions hindering them. As soon as a devotee acts with pure intentions to please Lord Krishna without any other motive for his self-indulgence, Krishna blesses him by freeing him from all desires except those to serve for the pleasure of the Lord. Gradually, as the pure desires of the devotee to serve the Lord become fixed, the Lord frees him from his past karmic fate, from present desires for self-pleasure, and the ignorance that blinds one from striving for the mercy of Krishna. This keeps one engaged in the selfish pursuit of temporary sense gratification. One second. A person acting steadily in Krishna consciousness is free from the bonds of karma. because he dedicates all his activities to serving Krishna. He does not receive any of the good or bad effects of his work. The activity of pure devotion to Krishna is called akarma, which means there are no reactions incurred by the performance of work in the material world. The determination to steadfastly serve without an expectation of sense gratification makes one immune to all sorts of reactionary consequences resulting from devotional acts meant to please Krishna. Freedom from the karmic reaction is stated by Krishna. Quote, one is understood to be in full knowledge whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Bhagavad Gita 4.19. The fire of perfect knowledge refers to the conviction that a person maintains that his eternal and constitutional identity is to be the unalloyed servant of the Lord. The knowledge of servitorship to the Lord is compared to fire. Such fire, once lighted, can burn up all kinds of reactions to work. He is no wise man who will quit a certainty for an uncertainty. Lord Krishna promises multiple times in the Bhagavad Gita that his devotee can obtain entrance back to the eternal spiritual world. This solemn promise should be taken very seriously. He declares, for one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Prita, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. Bhagavad Gita 8.14. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. Bhagavad Gita 9.34. My dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. Bhagavad Gita 11:55. Always thinking of me, become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear devotee, very dear friend. Bhagavad Gita 18:65. But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Prita, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Bhagavad Gita 12:6.7. All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to obtain me, the highest and most perfect goal. Bhagavad Gita 7.18. After attaining me, the great souls, who are yogis in devotion, never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. Bhagavad Gita 8:15. In this way, you will be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. Bhagavad Gita 9.28. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. Bhagavad Gita 8.28. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada writes, Arjuna was born in a saintly royal family. To him also the Lord says, take to my devotional service and come quickly back to Godhead, back home. No one should remain in this temporary world, full as it is with miseries. Everyone should attach himself to the bosom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead so that he can be eternally happy. The devotional service of the Supreme Lord is the only process by which all problems of all classes of men can be solved. Everyone should therefore take to Krishna consciousness and make his life perfect. Bhagavad Gita 9.33, purport. Having faith in material things and materialistic people is always replete with uncertainty as far as the outcome is concerned. But placing our faith in Lord Krishna's promise is a different thing. It is certain and guaranteed by the Lord himself and validated by many saints of the past. The Lord tells Arjuna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, again, I shall declare to you the supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection. Bhagavad Gita 14.1. All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore, you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. Bhagavad Gita 4.15. Lord Krishna advises Arjuna to act in Krishna consciousness as the great sages before him. The Lord is referring to the demigod of the sun, Vivaswan, who learned the philosophy of Krishna consciousness from Lord Krishna. The personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god, Vivaswan, and Vivaswan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. Bhagavad Gita 4.1. This is a description of the history of the Bhagavad Gita that was first spoken by the Lord to the sun god. All the great sages of the past who learned the spiritual science attained perfection. Lord Krishna explains the same Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna so that he can also attain perfection as the great sages of the past. Perfection means coming to the standard of pure devotional service to the Lord, by which one can attain freedom from the three factors that bind the living entity to the cycle of birth and death: time, the three modes of material nature, and karma. The only real certainty in the material world is the promise Lord Krishna makes that anyone who serves him with love and devotion will be saved from the cycle of birth and death and go back to the Lord's eternal spiritual abode. Putting our faith in the Lord's promise is the best decision we can make. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. Bhagavad Gita 8.7. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Prito, is sure to reach me. Bhagavad Gita 8.8. One who at the time of death fixes his life air between the eyebrows and by the strength of yoga with an undeviating mind engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavad Gita 8.10. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Bhagavad Gita 7.14. O Arjuna, those who take shelter of me, though they be of lower birth, fallen women, Vaishyas or businessmen, Sudras, day laborers, can attain the supreme destination. Bhagavad Gita 9.32. Hope against hope. By continually putting their faith in material things and hoping always for positive outcomes, we are reduced to hope against hope. We hope something favorable will happen, although we know it is not likely. Such expectation keeps us in the unending cycle of birth and death because we do not attempt to seriously search out the truth, but cling to a flimsy hope of material success. How can there be material success when we are all destined to get old, sick, and die? Scientists and plastic surgeons give false hopes that they can slow down the process of aging, prolong life, and eventually find a way to attain immortality. Just as a drowning man will grab all straws to save his life, so do uneducated persons believe the empty processes of anti-aging fraudsters. But in the back of their minds, they know that they will inevitably lose all their cherished possessions, including the body. They are always anxious and worried about the future and cannot have peace of mind. Fate. The body each person receives at birth is determined by the actions performed in a previous life, karma, and the unfulfilled desires one has at the point of death, consciousness. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. The living entity is in the material world, carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. Bhagavad Gita 15.8. The thoughts that preoccupy one's mind during the course of life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the critical moment of death. In this way, the consciousness one develops through his thoughts, desires, actions, and attachments determines the body and fate of the next life. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, that state he will attain without fail. Bhagavad Gita 8.6. There is no guarantee we will take rebirth as a human being. After death, there is no guarantee that we will be reborn as a human being. We are most fortunate to have a human body in this life. If we ignore the destiny of human life, which is to develop pure love and devotion to God, we may receive an animal, insect, or even lower body, such as a microbe, in the next life, and be forced to progress slowly through the process of birth and death to come back again to a human form. There are 8.4 million species of life that we can be born into according to our karma. Animals and lower forms of life do not have limited free will by which they can merit emancipation. It is only in the human form that we have a chance for self-realization and liberation from the cycle of birth and death. The human being must choose voluntarily to serve God and dedicate his energy, thoughts, and desires to practically follow the instructions of the Lord. This choice is reaffirmed every minute of each day by regularly hearing and chanting the names of God and associating with sincere devotees who practice the same with determination and faith. Jai. Okay, well, we'll stop right there. And this keeps going on. It says, Developing Faith. It's a very nice little book that I've written. It's got a lot of nice information in it. And we can continue tomorrow to read the rest of the book. Haribol, any questions, my dear devotees? Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Guru. Hare Krishna
Yes.
Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Guru
Haribol.
Maharaj, I have a question. When it is like this material world is Dukhalaya and it's hope against hope, then why we always like hope still? Like what is the secret for remembering, right, that it is hope against hope and the only hope is Krishna? Then
Well,
why are we engaged in so many activities? Why can't we be just focusing on Krishna only all the time?
we have the example of pure devotees like Prabhupada and many others. They were born as human beings, just like you and me, but they attained very exalted positions by practicing Krishna consciousness honestly and regularly. So that should give you faith that if you also follow in the, let's say, footsteps of genuine devotees like Srila Prabhupada, you will also overcome all the obstacles of spiritual life and attain liberation from the cycle of birth and death. You're seeing examples like Prabhupada and many other Vaishnava devotees who have attained perfection in this lifetime. So that means that you can also, if you have faith and follow sincerely and seriously the path of Krishna consciousness. If you can't do it, it's only because of laziness and not thinking clearly and not practicing seriously. But if you practice seriously every day, chanting your rounds, eating only prasadam, associating with genuine devotees, hearing lectures by genuine devotees, and engaging in devotional service, then you'll be guaranteed to go back to Godhead. That is Krishna's that is Krishna's promise. Konteya pratijanihi nami bhakta pranam. Declared boldly, Arjuna, that my devotee will never perish. So Krishna is promising you liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Konteya pratijanihi nami bhakta pranasyati. He's guaranteeing that you will attain perfection if you follow Krishna consciousness seriously. It's easier to follow Krishna consciousness than to become a karmi and not follow Krishna consciousness. The karmi will always be challenged by the material nature, but the devotee is always supported by the material nature to make more and more spiritual advancement. So rather than fighting nature, it's better to be on the side of nature and get the help of the Supreme Lord to make spiritual advancement. Okay. So when you are serious about following the regulative principles and chanting Hare Krishna, then Krishna will help you in every different way to make spiritual advancement. You have to have that faith. Okay. Any other questions?